Thanks everybody for being here. Wanted to have the emerging tech panel here today, and we've got our good friend Maynard Holt that is helping me moderate the panel, along with Ted Furlong from Baker Hughes and Tyson Greer from Quorum. So Maynard, anything you want to say to start us off?
Well, gosh, I'm sorry to be so loud. I'd like to salute Daniel Energy Partners for the creativity and the ambition. This is just fantastic. The biggest issue we have at our firm is getting the Army back. And so things like this, believe me, I'm going to send some snapshots. So I'm like, hey, look at this brave crowd. It's okay out here. No, but you guys are to be commended. I just wanted to say that to start off. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thanks for everyone for showing up. This has been a great day and a half so far, and we're really looking forward to this conversation. So with that, both of you guys are with companies that are well known within the oil field. Tyson on the software side, and Ted, I think a lot of the heavy equipment manufacturers around here know Baker Hughes. So why don't you give us a little introduction on what you do and a little bit about what you do within your company?
Sure, thank you. So my name's Ted Furlong. I'm the global data science leader for Baker Hughes. I'm part of the Oilfield Services division. And, of course, you do know us for providing heavy equipment, really full stream from well construction all the way through plug and abandonment, and then pipeline and LNG and really a full gamut of offerings. Within Oilfield Services, a lot of our tools, of course, have software in the tools, and then we utilize software for our service delivery, and ranging all the way from automated well construction, which we're now beginning, through just the basics of alarming and safety compliance and making sure that things go the way they need to go.
Great. And Tyson?
Yeah, thanks, Bill, for having me. My name's Tyson Greer. I'm the Chief Product Officer of Quorum Software. Quorum is the largest provider of business workflows for the energy industry around the globe. Our software touches every part of the operator value chain. We manage over $500 billion of capital planning for E&P operators across the globe, super majors all the way down to independents in the U.S. Our operational systems manage land and lease administration within the U.S. market, production, well life cycle, as well as a suite of accounting products. And then we have a sizable footprint in the midstream and downstream sectors with companies like Enterprise Products, Energy Transfer, all the way to LDC companies like NextEra Energy, Excel, and CenterPoint here. Our software touches every part of the value chain. If you're a consumer of energy, there's a high chance that Quorum has had a facilitation of that hydrocarbon. And in my role, I'm responsible for the portfolio strategy and really making sure that our portfolio and our vision is aligned to energy operators across the globe and of all shapes and sizes. Have a really fun job touching base with really every part of the value chain.
Ted, maybe just to kick it off, with technology and energy, we're always talking about adoption and people getting comfortable and realizing it's reliable. What would you say about, as far as you can tell, the industry's adoption of the cloud, how well that's going, how comfortable people are getting with that, and how important is that to everything we kind of hope to do to automate the oil field?
So I think the industry is getting certainly increasingly comfortable with the cloud, and that's true for the big IOCs as well as some of the NOCs that we work with. We still have lots of situations where our software is still on bare metal, in a ring-fenced operating environment, even for remote operations. And so I think not everyone has fully embraced the cloud, but we're seeing now is more and more virtual private clouds, even when it's contained within a country or contained within a certain operating environment. So I think there's just increasing confidence that, a lot of the security vulnerabilities that were contemplated and demonstrated in the past, some of the best practices are now within the cloud companies, and so you can really count on a lot of that security to come through. So we are seeing that, and I think it really helps enable people to have some scalable offerings. So scalable storage, scalable compute, which enables you to run better analytics when you're actually in the well construction process. As opposed to trying to level load everything through, some high performance computing cluster that, everything gets routed back to. So I think that's really going to enable more dynamic offerings especially out at the rig site. So, we're excited to see that happen.
Maybe you mentioned security. Can I just grab it while you're on that? I was on the way home yesterday. I think it was Bloomberg Radio, but somebody was popping off about the Chinese are building, an information superhighway where they're going to mine all the data. And, it was one of those like scary, weird, things you hear in today's world. But is that affecting this, the internationalization of data, everybody who's involved, the push towards data, and yet now we have these security, supply chain types of considerations? What's that doing to your world? Is that coming up a lot?
Well, I think we do take a lot of our sourcing decisions very seriously. So, some of the vulnerabilities that people have found have, certain type of firmware embedded in a hard drive that is recording information and sending it places. So, I'm sorry, Bill, this is taking a dark turn, but I pledge, I'm guilty.
No, it's good.
The point is, we do take sourcing very seriously for our products. And so we work with our suppliers and we check that sort of thing. And I think, all the way through our digital supply chain, we do check vulnerabilities. And in a lot of our remote operations, we have, I think, world-class security. So, now, does that mean you're immune to a vulnerability? It doesn't. But I think, going back to the prior point about, increased adoption to cloud technologies, I think people are realizing that a lot of the best practices are actually leveraging some of the open source technologies where there's a lot of eyes looking at these things and making sure that, in fact, you've got the best available technology delivering that security.
And not to gloss over the security issue, it is still large, but you guys are dealing with large cloud providers yourself. These aren't like fly-by-night operations, right? I mean, that is how you understand the vulnerabilities and be able to protect, your customers throughout the supply chain.
Yeah, that's correct. That's why it does take good partnerships, good relationships to make sure that, you've vetted out these vulnerabilities and are addressing them.
Great. Well, I guess we can shoot over to Tyson now, and you touched on it a little bit with Quorum. Talking a little bit about some of your products. What is really something that you want to highlight today that I think this crowd, not necessarily knowing Quorum all that well, where do you think you guys can help people, and especially in this area?
Yeah, I think when you think about the business of oil and gas, it's an incredibly diverse discipline that requires an incredibly complex system landscape to do what we do. You've got geology, you've got geophysics, you've got petrophysical workflows, you have enormous supply chain problems, and it's a tremendous amount of data. And our view is that through integration and through broader capabilities and integrated capabilities, and the ability to bring data in a quicker and more seamless fashion in decision makers' hands, that you get precision in decision making and you get the opportunity to run a better business. And that's the driver of adoption of business software, is am I able to create value? And we believe that the supply chain is incredibly integrated in our ability to bring those solutions to bear, whether it's planning software like Acerna Planning Space or Intersight, hydrocarbon management software like Energy Components, or stuff you may be familiar with in the US like Quorum Land. It really brings all the data together and creates a 360-degree view of a customer's operations, enabling them to make better decisions.
So Tyson, maybe one question, because Quorum, I know you guys just did an acquisition or two, and you've done others, and you seem to have a strategy. You're going to become a platform on which everything you might want to know about your business is managed off the same platform. So a guy like Lance can sit at his desk and see everything. Where is this headed? Tell us about the acquisition. What else do you want to do? What does Quorum look like in 3 or 4 years?
I think when you think about adoption in the business world, we're at an inflection point. Historically, you've had somebody buying a business system for a few different reasons. Number one, you've hit a scaling point, growth and M&A. And now I'm gonna take that opportunity to put something in place for the next 10 to 20 years. Number two, the bigger companies have a clock. I bought this system 15 years ago. I'm going to depreciate it. When I get to year zero, now I'm going to replace it, or it's cool. And I think that what our perspective is now is with production growth flattening and the new mindset is that it's really about return on investment and value. And now you've got to be in the C-suite. Now you've got to deliver integrated value at the highest level. And the only way to do that is through integration and better integrated systems. And our ability to, ultimately provide a platform that can take, I think we're going to talk about this in a little bit, a challenge for a large company is how do I evolve from something that's highly complex and create a value stream over time that allows me to invest in technology and deliver value to the organization for something that will take me 5 to 10 years to modernize. And we believe as a single vendor of scale that we'll be able to do that better than anybody else.
You touched on the capital piece, right? And a bunch of the other panelists have talked about capital and the lack of it in our space right now. You guys, I guess more for Tyson, but Ted as well. The value proposition that you bring is not necessarily, hey, you are going to get cash flow return tomorrow on this. How do you get over that while modernizing or pushing adoption for your products?
Yeah, I think it is the challenge. Quorum is a private equity backed company. We've been private equity backed for 10 years, and going from a startup for the first 10 years to having to focus on EBITDA and making returns and lower growth. Every dollar you spend, you have to show value in return. And I think the challenge is a couple of things. Number one, on the vendor side, cost of implementation is significant, and that's typically a significant barrier. And the change management of a system that touches everybody in the organization, there's a human cost of that and a disruption. And so focused on cloud and SaaS and technologies that really lower the total cost of ownership, and the speed of time to value is important. The other thing we focused on is energy companies are not great at justifying technology decisions. They're not great at what the return on investment is, how to think about hard cost and soft cost and the ROI of something that, if I put this system in, I'm really only going to eliminate maybe a couple of IT guys, but the decision making and the moving to a modus of operandus of proactive management of my business will ultimately allow me to eliminate downtime or increase production, et cetera. And so we've invested in value engineering and building business cases for customers and really helping them understand what the value of this technology investment is to justify it within their organization.
Ted, would you mind grabbing that one a little bit? That's an interesting point Tyson made about, calculating the returns of the tech investment. That is a problem because sometimes it's like, how do you quantify that? And the person arguing for it wants to do it, and maybe they make up some benefits. I'm teasing you, Tyson, but it gets really fuzzy. What do you see in your organization and with your customers around that?
Yeah, I think that's certainly true. There's nothing that brings pull in an organization like they're seeing results and they're getting the value. So that, when we are doing say for example, if we're having an analytic and the analytic is doing something like, looking at pump life and helping our customers run our pumps better, right? I mean, obviously there's an economic value associated with running your pumps better, and they can all see that if they in fact get that. But it's a little bit like an insurance sale in the sense that, that one was a good pump and it just lasted longer. And, so there's an element of credibility and can you believe it? But, I think where Tyson's going on, the change management, that's really the bigger thing. And it's more a mindset of evolving into a more dynamic software environment. So, for example, most people, I think when they shift from on-premises compute and storage to a cloud provider, are surprised that it's actually more money to be in a cloud environment. And the reality is it is more money to be in a cloud environment, but the thing that you really get is all of the other benefits that you ultimately will reap in terms of, scalability, simplicity, staying current and staying, in the right version of the software. And I think, that type of SaaS mentality, software as a service mentality, is really kind of a mindset that will ultimately enable the industry to reach new levels of productivity.
Would you mind just explaining that? Because Bill and I are looking at each other going, yeah, we would have thought the cloud's cheaper too. I get rid of all this stuff. I don't need as many people.
Look, the best analogy I can give you is that I used to buy a roll of film for $5 and I'd print out the pictures and I'd have them forever. Now I spend $5 a month to look at the pictures whenever I want. Is it cheaper? I don't know.
It's a different service.
It doesn't seem to be cheaper, but it is pretty efficient to be able to say, hey, give me a picture of my daughter when she was riding on a horse on the beach, and it shows up, because I would have to dig through stacks of pictures in the past. So there's value, right? There's value.
Oh, look, I think we're kind of touching around it is the efficiency side, right? I mean, I think that's another thing that we've talked a little bit about. We can go into the whole ESG thing, but really efficiencies and proving out that you guys are adding or allowing for more efficiencies, whether that is to less IT guys or how that works. How are you guys driving that forward, and have you seen those efficiencies really show up for your customers? Tyson, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd say, I echo what Ted said. It's cultural, right? I mean, you see some operators. I think Toby Rice at EQT is a great example that is pushing digitization, through the entire organization and bleeds it, and that is very important to doing this. I think, what companies, and where we've had success in COVID is exacerbated. There are opportunities that have hard ROIs in this business. Paper is a great example. Oil and gas is a real estate business. My father's in banking. He and I, talk about how banking and energy had the last two passions on earth with extreme amounts of paper, and digitization of that world, and connecting what's in file cabinets and, the ability to have all that information at your fingertips and also have it in close proximity to all the other digital records is key. And in COVID, as people are pushed from their environments, they realized they didn't have access to that information. And so that's an easy way to evolve into your digital strategy that provides immediate ROI to the business. And so you just got to be creative in finding that value stream of getting from point A to point B that can deliver incremental and involve value to the business, but having a roadmap that ensures that as I make a specific decision, it is taking me closer to my ultimate goal versus a bunch of random decisions that get you to digitization, but in the end, they move you farther from the end goal because you have disparate systems, you have unintegrated workflow processes, and ultimately, a lot of stuff is digitized, but it's not making you more efficient.
Can I ask you guys, so there are some operators in the room, so generically, you meet a upstream company. What are the 2 or 3 signs where you say, oh man, this is going to be an easy sale. This works. These guys, da-da-da-da. And what are those qualities where you say, probably not going to be calling these guys, or this won't work? Or like, what are the cultural, structural features? What do you look for when you're trying to find that perfect customer who's going to just inhale all the good things you can do?
I would say this. When we're usually brought in alongside our other services that we offer, so it's a little bit subtly different for us. But when we are talking about remote operations and enabling a well to be drilled remotely or a well construction remotely, the real question that comes on is, how can we land that well better? How can we get better production? How can we dynamically change that trajectory while we're in the well construction process? And whether the client is open to that, or whether the client says, actually, we've got the well plan already set, we know what we want to do, please just execute the job. And then for us, I mean, that's really the two sides of it. So it's really a question about, are they looking for a better outcome? Maybe we can take a couple days off drilling if we're dynamically watching and we're looking for how many feet along the pay zone are you looking for? We can stop the well construction early. And how much is it actually, we just wanted you to drill, and if you can get done in 26 days, you get a bonus or something.
That almost gets to the people you're talking to. What are their incentives at some level? Like, am I paid to cut costs, or am I paid for productivity, or what?
Or am I focused on production, or am I focused on well construction? How much am I involved in the life of the well?
Or are you trying to rethink I think a red flag for us is you show up and they want to, you're doing a colonoscopy on their current business requirements, right? Which is, I want to fit my business into this piece of software versus vice versa, which is, okay, you have a modern platform that helps me optimize how I should operate. Tell me about the value and how I can fit my business around new paradigms. And so, inevitably that is a big challenge for digitization and efficiency, which is, you're not able to change your operating, model and your paradigm. And you really, even though you've digitized something again, you're creating those same silos through through lack of organizational change. And so if you show up and you're dealing with the business and you're talking about, now I need to go through the 3,000 requirements that we need to do, versus having a higher level conversation about, these are our organizational objectives and this is what we're trying to do with technology to drive business outcome, then you're having the wrong conversation.
And that sounds a lot like you mentioned culture, right? That is getting that culture. But then also, when you have the silos, right, it doesn't necessarily give you the opportunity to show, hey, here's the ROI on something, right? It kind of goes into a black box somewhere, and everyone says, well, man, we digitized this and I don't even know what happened.
That's right. You would be surprised at the number of companies. You ask them, what's the objective, the business objective of this digital project? And the answer is, well, it's just old. It needs to be modernized. Or it needs to be automated, right? It's something that's manual, and those aren't great objectives. At the end of the day, they don't well define, an ROI to the overall business. They don't have good metrics, and most of the time they'll fail.
So if we knew sitting here, if all this M&A happens in your customer space that might happen, let's say it was unbelievable over 2 years, right? Do you fundamentally get excited about that because then bigger companies can spend more and do more? Or do you say, oh God, that's a software analytics mess that'll slow everything down, and I hope it doesn't happen?
I think it's a great question. I think, a lot of the technology debt that exists today in oil and gas was created through M&A. But I think they were doing it to get scale and slamming things together. I do see that companies are looking at things as are they accretive, and can we execute them? Are there cultural fits? And can we extract the cost synergies of the business that we need to when they go through this? So I think the industry is getting smarter around M&A. I think it does create challenges for solving this problem on an even grander scale, because now you're putting together two things that need modernization themselves, and you're creating another curve to rationalize them. And I think it's going to create opportunity for the mid cap and smaller cap guys as people focus on making money and profit, and they have an advantage, I think, over some of that scale and their ability to modernize and use technology better.
I would follow on and just say that, a lot of the reason for going into a cloud environment or a SaaS type environment is, in fact, if you get into M&A activity, you don't have a huge software integration cost that can come on the backside of that. So, many people have done ERP integrations of, SAP or Oracle type integrations, and they can be extremely painful. I've done many of those implementations myself. And I think, what you're trying to move is to software that's more modular, different business units that are more modular, their software can interact. And you really want to enable the workforce to be a little bit more multidisciplinary themselves. And that's really the part of a lot of these underlying software tools. So just like we want our, rig hands to be able to support different aspects of well construction, we also want our application engineers to be able to support, mud programs, BHA selection, trajectory optimization, or pump selection. And so how can you help your application engineers? How can you help drive these workflows and simplify the integration of a lot of this data? How can you bring it all together in a simple way?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think same thing, think about a land department and what they needed to do a decade ago and what they need to do today. It turns out probably the systems and how they're organized are predicated on, high levels of leasing and the activity that they needed to do 10 years ago. And our companies appropriately looking at the software, the process, and the people aspect of who does what, and being able to blur lines and get more efficiency out of every single department in the most robust and really the most disruptive way. And the ones that do that and rethink the problem for the new normal, I think they will be the ones that succeed.
Sorry, I'm getting excited over here, Bill. So Ted, you have a background in data science. How do you go to MIT and get one of their best to join you, or in general to join our industry, to get excited about it and turn down the GameStop offer and the casino and the sports agency business? Like, how are we going to get the people we need to really do what we need to do?
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see how 2020 affected what hiring will be in the energy space. I think that's fair. But in the past, and we still hire now in our organization developing software. Normally, what we do when we talk to the young talent is we really help them understand how important energy is into quality of life, and that you're part of solving one of the world's greatest problems. And so it's you're joining a company with scale, helping customers solve problems at scale that impact the globe. Do we need to be less carbon intensive? We do, but actually, we've been evolving from, coal to oil to gas over hundreds of years. We are evolving into less carbon intensity in our energy, but there's so many challenges that remain, and I think people understand that they want to make an impact, and this is a way to come in and make an impact in an industry that needs your help.
Same. I think, for Quorum, I think maybe even more so challenging because we're a pure tech company, and so we have. I think the amount of evangelization that we've had to do over the last 12 to 18 months on what it means to be in energy has gone up, exponentially, and really educating our employees who probably are further away from the oil field than really anybody in the vertical on what it means, how important it is, and I think echoing, it seemed like the industry itself is going on offense around the value of energy, the energy transition, and amplifying that and really driving it, and it's going to continue to be a challenge, particularly as our vertical, maybe has a tamp recovery from COVID, while you see tech and consumer, and these skills are very applicable in those markets. Attrition, is something that's very difficult for us to continue to maintain and attract talent. And as our vertical grows less, and we see less growth as our customers grow less, the ability to keep up with comp and really all the things you've got to do to attract and retain this talent becomes very difficult as well.
Yeah, this is something that I like Maynard. I get excited about this as well. It's one of the few bright spots in our industry. You've got all this great data that people are adopting at an increasing rate, right? All of your customers want to go through this cultural change to adopt what you're doing, and then you can hopefully attract talent because you're doing that. That wasn't really a question. I get excited about it as well.
What have we not talked about? What's the biggest issue we're not talking about in all this? Everybody's excited. We're going to cut costs. We're going to get better. We're going to sell the world on how important energy is. But what have we not?
I think people are going to figure out how to make money in all parts of the value chain. And I think embracing ingenuity, innovation, new operating models in technology is what will ultimately do that. And I think what we've seen, what was surprising to me in the code, we have software that handles the largest companies in the value chain and the smallest ones. The part of our company within the upstream segment that saw the best growth was in the small, mid-sized upstream North American market. And so those companies they have less technology debt, they have people that are looking at the problem more holistically, they have less silos, they are embracing cloud, SaaS, data at a level that far outstrips the big guys. They will, I think inevitably somebody will figure out how to make money in that paradigm. And just like Quorum is not SAP, we're not Microsoft, but we have made investors a tremendous amount of money through a proven business model. And I think that's what the industry needs to embrace and really drive that. And technology, particularly in the business systems space, scale is different. I think in the oil field, obviously, I'm not an expert, but you can achieve significant scale through technology in the front, mid, and back office that allows you to compete with the largest companies in the world, particularly with the vendors that exist today in the startup ecosystem, that's available to companies of any shape and size in the cloud. And I think companies that embrace that and believe that they will have a competitive advantage moving forward.
Awesome.
From my perspective, one thing we haven't really discussed is, how do you get it all done? I think partnerships are the key here. We've partnered with other service companies in the past. We partner with our customers. We have software companies. We partner sometimes with universities. I don't really think, we would advocate for a monolithic approach to these solutions. I think it is evolving into elements where you can take the part that is valuable to you, that you could make use of, and then, hey, if I consume that, I'll pay a little for it, that's fine. And then letting things mix and match between the different service companies or software companies, I really think that's got to be part of our future, because I think none of us have the resources to build the perfect application. And there's so much diversity in the industry in terms of what their needs are that, I think you need to have some customization always. So I think, how do you reach that balance of some infrastructure that gives you the glue to work on, and then different modules that you can interact with and partner with different people? I think that's really the key to reimagining ourselves in our digital transformation. We're getting there, but I would say there's still a long way to go.
Is there any, without giving away a state secret, is anybody doing something crazy like, I can't believe they're collecting this data source? Like something new, that we have not thought about collecting before? Are you seeing any trend that really surprises you along those lines?
I don't think they're collecting a new data source, but they're definitely companies that are putting it all together and figuring out how to use AI and having high quality data sets. And oil and gas has a tremendous amount of data. The problem is making sure it's of sufficient quality and integrating it together to be able to do things with it. And there are some very innovative companies, small, medium, and large, I think, that are doing extreme levels of automation, high levels of decision making. And then there are companies that haven't even begun to embrace it. And so, I think you just see companies all over the map, across the industry.
I would say the same. We see more discipline about collecting data, high quality data. That's probably the biggest thing. And the surprises now come when people don't bother to collect the data. And we still see that, but we'll finish our project and we'll turn in the data, and the client never looks at it. We're still, how's that even possible? But it still happens, and that really surprises us now, and it's less and less common. So I think it's more around having the discipline to load the data in a way that's consumable, because that's really the key. But somebody telling you, yeah, somebody has this file on their laptop, that doesn't do anybody any good.
Right.
And even just knowing that there's a file doesn't do you any good. It's, can the data be loaded in a format that's consumable by an application that can make use of it? And is it a click of a button?
Right.
Because anything harder than that, none of us have time. So it's like, you got to get that user experience to the point where it's easy to do, people can do multiple jobs, and it drives value.
Right. I think that a lot of people here probably have had dashboards on their computer and they can make decisions. And as long as, I think Tyson, we talked about this, the data and making decisions off of data, like as long as it's good, you can do something with it.
Yeah, I think the OSDU is a great, is a great example of industry partnership and really making data universal, right? It's an open language to share, surface and subsurface information across technical systems, business systems. We're all tied into this. Microsoft, AWS is tied into it, and it's in partnership with a lot of companies, both on the service sector, the technology sector, the operator sector in North America and abroad. And I think it is a great example of the recognition that collaboration, both amongst companies and also amongst the various departments in creating that single source of truth is ultimately a way to win.
Yeah. Well, I think we're coming down to it, but anything else that you guys, we've been kind of asking this a little bit, but what are you excited about in 2021?
I think we've got a lot of, one of our partners is C3 AI. We do a lot of work with them. We now have projects with customers in every major region that we support, Russia and Asia Pac and North America, Latin America. So I think it's really exciting to be, really operationalizing some of the AI and driving real business value with use cases at scale, I would say. So, we were kind of evolving from the POCs of the last 2 years into real deployments at scale. And I'm real excited about that in 2021.
I think it's a great time to be in technology. I think, efficiency is paramount and people are going to rethink these problems, and technology is obviously a key driver of that. So I think we're excited about stability and seeing folks, get back to business, whether that's growth or whether that's simply accepting the reality that we're in and figuring out how to change their mindset and operate in the conditions that they have to operate in. And technology will help them do that.
Well, Maynard, anything else you want to add?
No, I'm excited too. I'm excited. These guys are going to help our industry get more profitable, and all of us are going to do a better job of telling the story. And so in a year or two, we could be fantastic. So, thanks guys. It was great discussion. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks guys.
For having us.
Thanks guys.